We're going to preach this morning out of the 46th chapter of the book of Isaiah. If we're in England, they'd say Isaiah, but we're not in England, so it's Isaiah for us. Isaiah chapter 46. And we're going to camp in there a little bit this morning. I've not decided yet for sure what next series of sermons will be on. I'm still listening to the Lord on that. But while we get through the holidays, I'm going to just pick a few places that the Lord shows me. And I've been reading through Isaiah, and I'm finding things there I hadn't read in a long time. And I'm just enjoying it, picking out a few. I'm not going on any kind of series, but we're just picking out a few verses, chapters, and all in Isaiah. So we're there this morning. As you know, this is not the first week I've ever been a pastor. I've done this most of my life, but I'm hearing people, not in the church, but I'm hearing people around the world and in the communities and neighborhoods and at places I go, that they're getting weary of waiting on God to move, weary of the stress of life, weary of this and that. Let me ask you a hard question. Do you ever feel like God has abandoned you?
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever feel like that God has forgotten about you, or your pain or your suffering? Now, I know most of you are walking in your faith and you're living it day by day, so you don't have those. But some people that are around us, good people, godly people, are weary of their struggle. If you're here this morning and you have gotten tired or gotten worried or begin to have your faith settle down just a little bit, I have a good sermon for you this morning. I've got good news for you. This sermon is for those that need some encouragement, some lifting up. I'm going to help you today to pick up your heads. People are asking me, why is there so much death in the world and savagery? And I don't even want to talk about what the ISIS is doing to Christians and children, and because my heart, I cannot go there. I just cannot go there. But horrible things are happening to our brothers and sisters in the world, and why is God letting that happen? People ask me, why didn't God just step out of heaven and end this? And I wish I had an answer, but I do know what the deal is. He's giving us time. He's patient. If I was God, I'd already wiped you all out. I mean, I'd have scorched you every one, with fire. I know, what I mean is. But God's patient, long suffering. God's not asleep. He's not lost interest in the plight of the earth. He knows what's going on. He's the Lord of all. He's the Lord of heaven. He's the Lord of earth. He's the Lord of everything in between. And someday, when He says it's enough, then it's going to be enough. But the Lord will do it at the right moment, that He won't be 5 seconds early, and He won't be 5 seconds late. Whenever He does it, it will be right on time. Now, here's something I want to say to you that I want to say. Please hear this. This is coming from God to you. I want you to hear this. Not that I'm God or any kind of a special mouthpiece. I'm not. But I want you to hear this because this is coming directly to you. The Lord cares intimately about you as an individual. He doesn't just care about groups, but you. He knows you by name, and He cares about you. He knows you just like a father knows his children. I got children, and I know them. Sometimes I'd like to kill them. Sometimes. And sometimes they don't do everything I want, or as fast as I want it, or the way I want it, but I love them. And I know them. I kind of know. It was so funny when my kids were growing up, they'd be getting in meanness or something. I'd say, look, I know exactly what you're thinking. They'd say, how do you know what I think? Because I had the same thoughts you did when I was your age. You know what I'm talking about. It's like the kids, Daddy, can you read my mind? I said, well, yeah, kind of, because we're just about alike. Anyway, God knows you. And even though there are times, I'm sure He's disappointed with us, but down deep, He loves you so much. Now, we've got to come and get this. I want to give you a pair of glasses to read this story with today, because you have to understand what's going on in the text to get it where you can pick it up and put it in your life. Well, this man named Isaiah was a preacher. He was a prophet, preacher, scribe, although he's a Bible student. And he was writing to his people in Babylon. Now, he's a Jew. His people are Jews. And they've been captured by Nebuchadnezzar about 60 years ago. And we're getting close to the time they come home. So it's been 60, 65 years now. A generation, they've been gone and taken to their foreign country. It was like the Mexicans came up here and raided America and took us all to Mexico. That is kind of what it'd be like. All right? And we've been down there and we can't come home. They've held us in a big prison camp down there. And we've been down there for 65 years. All right. So now they're tired of being away from home. They've given up on God. They're just not sure God's caring about them. And they have decided to begin to worship the Babylonian gods. Of God, if you're not going to take care of us, we'll just worship these Babylonian gods. Yeah, they must be more powerful than you anyway. That's what they're thinking. Because if you're powerful, you could have got us out of this. So they begin to worship them. Now, let me tell you about the Babylonian gods. Now, this is going to be a little bit down the rabbit hole. So hold on to the sides of your seats for just a little while. We're going to go in some pretty deep territory for a minute. Won't stay there long. Let me tell you about these Babylonian gods. They are part of a religion we call today the mystery religions. The mystery religions. If you're interested in that, Google it and you can study it. But it's based on what happened in Genesis chapter 6. All right? In Genesis chapter 6 is one of those really hard to understand. It says the angels, the sons of God, which are angels who've fallen, came and married and cohabited, had sex with human women. All right? So we're talking about genetically mixing angelic, human, and they produced a hybrid race. The Bible calls them giants. That's not a good English translation, but they were the fallen ones, is what they're called. And they lived on the earth before the flood. They were here on the planet Earth, and it was a horrible mess. They messed up everything in this early times as God was getting it all started. And then thousands of years passed, and now in Babylon they're worshiping those fallen angels, those crossbred things that were here. They're now worshiping them. Okay, you with me? This is deep, but that's what they were worshiping, these things. And they had made idols to these fallen demons, these angels, these crossbred people. They'd made idols to them, and they were bowing down to them and worshiping them. And that's what was about to happen to the people of God. They're about to give up on Jehovah, and we're about to start worshiping fallen, evil, demonic things. Now, the first of these, you know him. You know his by name. And when I call his name out, you're going to immediately understand who I'm talking about. And when you go back and reread Genesis again, you're going to learn more about this guy. His name was Nimrod. Mm-hmm. Nimrod was one of these fallen things. All right? In Egypt, he's known as Osiris. The Greek called him Apollo. That same name, Gilgamesh, in some of the stories. If you've ever heard about any of those things, they're all different names for this Nimrod. And if you read what Nimrod did in the Old Testament, you'll see he was the original Antichrist. He was the very first one that stood up against God and said, "No, we're not going to do what God says. We're going to do it another way." Now this is some. Just go back and read it. There's a whole bunch of history there, but you'll get it. He was that archetypal Antichrist on the plains of Babel at Shinar there, where he led a rebellion against God and built the Tower of Babel. Okay, you're with me. Now, let's come on forward. Let's fast forward. Now, by the time we've caught up with Isaiah here in chapter 46, the people have begun to give up on God. They believe that God was a regional God, that Jehovah only was God of Palestine. Some did it. They didn't understand God as we do today. And what Isaiah's trying to say, look, He's not just Palestine God. He's God of the universe. He made everything. He marshaled the starry hosts of heaven. He put it all together. He called every star by name. It was that God. But the Israelites, who were down here with their heads down, in Babylon. They didn't understand that completely, and they were about to give up on God. And Isaiah stands up and begins to preach to them the truth about who God is, about what needs to happen, and how they can make it through this difficult time. And what he's trying to tell them was, it's about over. It's about over. This God's going to send somebody down here and going to get us out, and we're going to go home. And I'm going to tell you today, the same thing's about to happen again. It's about over. And God's going to send somebody down and get us out of this mess again. And his name is Jehovah Jesus, Yahweh. He's coming back. Now, if you want your life to have meaning, and you want to enjoy the benefits of heaven, and make Jesus Lord of your life. This is the old-time religion we're talking about this morning. We're not talking about some newfangled thing, but it's all old now, but we're talking about the original worship of God. So why do I need to tell you, and why do you need to hear this morning that it's time to turn back to the Lord? Why do I say that to a room full of Christians? Why do I tell you as Christians it's time to turn back to the Lord? Because folks, I believe the time is short. And I believe what we're going to do for the Lord, we've got to get in a hurry to get to doing it. I believe the time is near. And I'm saying to you, as it gets closer to the end, it's going to get more difficult for you to be a Christian. It's going to get more difficult for your faith to hold in some of the new things that you're going to hear about that's coming down the pike. Some things are going to rattle your faith to the very core. So I'm saying today, deepen your faith. If you prayed twice a day, pray 6 times a day. If you fasted once a month, fast once a week, or whatever you did before in your practice of your faith, double your efforts, because we're moving into a time that's going to shake us to the core. Now I'm going to talk today about this in a deep way, and I hope that God will speak to you as He has to me through this sermon. Here's why we need to hold on. Folks, the darkness needs human strength to thrive. Think about that a minute. The evil, the darkness, needs your help to thrive. Let me read a little bit and we'll talk more. Verse 1. Bel, who's Bel? Beelzebub, Baal. Okay, same word. Bel bows down. Nebo stoops low. These are idols that the Babylonians made. Okay, they bow down, they stoop low. Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. They're carried around by beasts of burden. They don't walk. They don't fly. They're just clumps of wood and gold. Okay. The images that are carried about are burdensome, a burden for the weary. They stoop and bow down together, unable to rescue the burden. They themselves go off into captivity. What Isaiah is saying is, look around, you Jews, you hard-headed Jews that are about to give up on God. You want to worship a what? You want to worship an idol that has to be carried around by a cow on a cart, that when it falls over, somebody has to stand it up. Somebody had to make it. That's what you want to worship? Okay, that's where he's going here. He's trying to say to them that these false idols and the things that are dark in our world today, the darkness in our world today, needs our help to be built. Evil needs you to help it reach into your world. It doesn't have reach into our world unless you give it reach. Okay? And that's what I'm trying to say today. The people taken into captivity. For instance, Isaiah is saying, if somebody were to come and overrun the Babylonians and steal them, they'd steal their gods too and take them with them. But your God was not stolen and brought down here with you. God goes where He wants to go. He's God of the universe. He can't be stolen or taken away. When you went into captivity, God didn't go into captivity. He's with you here, but He's not captive. That's why He's trying to make sense of them here. Now, my dad made my children and my grandchildren, he made a little rocking horse. And he made it out of wood, and it's got wooden rockers. It sits down in my basement today. My grandkids still love to play on the rocking horse. And when you leave the rocking horse alone, it sits there in the floor, absolutely motionless. It does not move. It has no will of its own. It has no power of its own. It just sits there. But then one of my little grandkids would climb up on it, and boy, here we go. I mean, Rocky Horse goes to town. He just moves and shakes his head, his mane and his tail flops it, because he's animated by a person. All right. God is not a rocking horse. He don't need you to animate him. But the devil and evil does. It has no reach into our world unless you give it your hands, or you give it your mouth, or you give it its feet. It has no reach in our world other than that. If you're weary of heart and your soul is tired, it's time for you to rest in the Lord. It's time for you to let the Lord animate you. He carries His children. He shepherds His own and His young. He carries them. He doesn't need your energy. He doesn't draw energy from you. He supplies energy from you. Evil will suck the life right out of you and the joy. But the Lord gives strength to you. Now, so I'm going to leave that. I hope you've gotten that point. The devil needs you to have reach into our world. And Isaiah's trying to tell those folks there, don't let it happen. You resist it. Now the second thing I want to tell you why it's time to get back to the Lord is because the Lord gives strength to His children. He supplies. And I said that, but I want to nail it down here. Look at verse 3. Listen to me, house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel. Who's Jacob? Who's Israel? Okay, these are the progenitor of the Israelis, the Jews. This is the one they're talking about. Abraham's and Isaac and Jacob. You get the point. All the remnant of the house of Israel, you whom I have upheld since your birth, and have carried since you were born, even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I love you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. With whom will you compare me, or count me equal? To whom will you liken me, that we may be compared? So Isaiah is trying to say to those Jews, okay, Jews, I know you're in a mess. He said, but look back from Abraham. Go back and just follow the history. And by the way, all those people knew their history. They knew it better than you know your American history. They knew their history. Their thousands of year old history. They knew it. They understood. They knew. Every one of them could connect themselves back to Noah. They could go back to the boat. Almost all those tribes, they knew where they came from. And so they knew where they connected with Abraham. And so they said, as they said, look back at your history. See how God has carried you through all this. Egypt, the Red Sea. Watch how God's brought you into the promised land. He said, look back and remember all that and compare it. Has God been taking care of you? Oh, yes, He has. He's been taking care of you. He will send a rescue for you. Last Thursday night, I spoke on this subject, and we talked about a Persian general by the name of Cyrus. And Cyrus was about to overwhelm Cyrus came and beat up the Babylonians and took control of the power. All right, he became the Babylonian emperor or whatever, the world ruler. And when Cyrus got there, he turned to all the Jews and he said, okay, if you guys want to go home, go home. If you want to stay here, stay here. Whatever you want to do, just do it. You're free, do what you want to do. And so the Jews all went home back but that was about to happen. And Isaiah is telling them here that God's going to send a deliverer, and He's going to let you go home. God carries His children. He takes care of them. I'm going to send a rescue. Now let me just be personal with you a moment this morning. Let me be personal and say that in public life, and I've lived in my life in public for, all my life, there are times that you get in the fire. You know what I'm talking about? There are times you get in the fire. You have to make a hard decision, or you have to preach on a topic that's not popular, or you have to say, thus saith the Lord, when you'd rather just talk about something else. And it's not popular sometimes. And I've been in the fire many times in ministry and in life. But please hear this. From my heart today, God has never failed me. That's just not preachers saying that. I want you to hear that with fresh ears. God has never failed me, ever, in any way. His promises have been true to the very day when He would promise me things. I just can't tell you, He's never, ever failed And I guarantee you, He's never failed you either. If you're in a difficult place, God has not failed you. He's not forgotten you. You're not abandoned. He's not tired of it. He's not weary. He's on target, on time, on budget. He knows what He's doing, and He's going to bring you through at the right moment. Trust Him. He's going to take care of you. He has no equal in the world. His promises to me have all been completely. So whatever you're using, listen now, this is very important. Whatever you're using to keep your life together, whatever that is, and you know what it is, drop it. Leave it alone. Walk away from it today. Because whatever you're using to keep your life together, if it's not God, is going to fail you. It is failing you, and it will fail you. Abandon it. Repent of it. Turn it over to God and walk away from it. Because you're the hands of the devil. He needs you to reach into this world. Don't let him reach into it through you. Let the Holy Spirit guide you and lift you and carry you through this tough time. Look at verse 6. Some pour out gold from their bags and weigh out silver on the scale. So you see what they're doing? They're getting their money, their gold and their silver, and they're taking it to a silversmith or a metallurgist who's going to work it into some kind of a covering for their idols. That's what they're talking about. You have to pay your money. Okay, let's go back now. Some of you pour out gold from their bags and weigh out silver on the scales. They hire a goldsmith to make it into gold, and they bow down and worship it. They lift it on their shoulders and they carry it and they set it up in its place. And there it stands from that spot. It cannot move. Though people cry out to it, it does not answer. It cannot save them from their troubles. That's what they did. They took their money, built their god, and it was a dumb, stupid piece of wood covered over with metal. Now, what I want to tell you today is that what happens is when we walk away from the Lord, or we give evil reach into our life, the darkness simply adds to our burden. It simply adds to the weight of your life. If you're wondering why it's so tiresome, why you get so weary spiritually and emotionally, why do you do this? It's because you're letting the devil reach through your life and use you. And you're paying for it. I get tickled. People say, I don't want no church stuff. I don't have anything to do with that. All they want down there is my money. Have you ever heard anybody say that? That's all they ever want down in church is my money. It's all they ever talk about. You haven't been to Cowboy Church. We don't talk about money. But let me tell you something. I'm going to be just as honest with you as I can be. My father owns every Black Angus, Red Angus, Holstein, Jersey, horse, cow, goat, sheep, bird, fish on the planet Earth. He owns every last one of them. Every gold mine on planet Earth, he already owns it. In outer space, they tell us there are meteorites out there that are made of gold and silver and iron and nickel. Listen, God does not need your money. He does not need your money. In fact, it don't mean anything to Him. Somebody said, well, what about the gold in heaven? Well, yeah, they paved the streets with it. How do you like asphalt? Okay? Gold is asphalt to God. I mean, it don't mean anything to Him. See, now, should I tell you something? If you never gave God a penny, if you never served Him another moment the rest of your life, if you never did anything for God, it wouldn't make any difference at all to God. You wouldn't help Him. You don't increase God. You don't expand Him. You don't lift Him up. Because nothing you can do can touch Him. He already owns everything you got anyway. See, it does not help God one bit when you give your money. But it helps you. It helps you. You say, well, really? How does it help me? I don't understand all the laws of the Spirit. I just know that the more you give, the more you get. I don't understand that. I just proved it with my life. You wouldn't believe what God's done in my life financially with the little bit of money that He's given me. But we've just been faithful with it, and shared it, and tithed on it, and gave it. And I don't want to say it out loud, but I'm rich. I never dreamed I'd have this kind of money when I got my age. I never dreamed I'd be this wealthy. How did I do that? Not from What I did, I wasn't smart enough to know how to save anything. But God has blessed beyond imagination. And I'm trying to tell you, you don't help God, but He'll help you whenever it comes to, if you'll be faithful in giving. So stop throwing your resources away into the darkness. Listen, if you're following some kind of rule like that, it only is going to add to your burden. I talk to people all the time. Well, they won't step on a crack in a sidewalk, or they won't walk under a ladder, and if a black cat crosses the road, they go in another way. And, that's just plain silly, guys. I mean, that's just silly. That's just stupid stuff. We all do, but it's silly. It just adds to your burden. Okay, I gave that light part so you see, but the other side of it's much darker even than that, and we get lost in that. But darkness only adds to your burden. Okay, let me wind this up. What do you need to know? You need to know this morning that the Lord asks us to remember Him. Remember who He is. And let's keep reading. Let's keep reading in verse 8. Remember this. Keep in mind. Take it to heart, you rebels. I get tickled when I read that. Who does he call? Isaiah calls these people, you rebels. He said, remember this. Keep it in mind. Take it to heart, you rebels. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning. From ancient times, what is still to come, I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. In other words, God says, I'm going to do what I set out to do. I know the beginning, and I know the end. I know it all as one sweep of motion. I know it all. Now, please listen. There is no other God but God. Now, you may have other demonic gods that you worship, or witchcraft, or some kind of one thing or another, and you're worshiping some God with a small g. I want to tell you something. You're worshiping a dead thing. There is no such thing as that. Now, there is evil, and I believe there's demonology, and I believe there's all kinds of things that are evil in the world, but they're not God. They're not God. There's only one God. And He has revealed His great plan from the beginning to the end, and His plan will succeed in your life. God's plan will work in your life. Don't give up on Him. That's the message I have today. Don't give up. Double your efforts as we see the time to the end approach. The Lord asks us to remember His promises. Let me just read them quickly. I'm about done. Verse 11. Now, when I read this, I want you to get in mind this guy named Cyrus that I'm talking about. That's who he's talking about. From the east I summon a bird of prey. From a far-off land, a man, to fulfill my purpose. What I have said, that I will bring about. What I have planned, that I will do. Listen to me, you stubborn-hearted, you who are now far away from my righteousness. I am bringing my righteousness near. It's not far away, and my salvation will not be delayed. I will grant salvation to Zion, my splendor to Israel. So what he was saying was, guys, a deliverer is coming. And Cyrus was that deliverer. And he came and he set the people free. And I'm telling you, there's another Cyrus coming. The original Cyrus, the Jesus, the King of Kings. He's coming. Here's the promises. He said, I'm going to send a deliverer. Come and help you. He's going to bring salvation close to you. And I love that thought. That salvation is not some far-off thing or at the end of life thing. Salvation is near to us. It will not delay. It's here today for you to reach out in faith and take it. Because He's going to save those that He loves, His children that He's going to love. And I close with these two sentences. Number one, if you're a believer, hold on to your faith. Hold on. I'm telling you, there are things coming that will shake your faith to your very core. There are things coming that are going to pull away millions away from the faith. Trust me on this. I'm not going to go into this morning. But things are coming, and they're rapidly coming together that are going to shake your faith to the core. Dig deep now. Dig deep now. Redouble your faith. Double your prayer life. Double your giving. Double your sharing with others. Double your testimony, your witness. Now's the time. We've got to dig deep because the time is near. Redemption is coming. And if you're a believer, if you're not a believer, now this is the most important thing probably I've said today. If you're not a believer, if you don't know the Lord, don't leave here today without Him. I wouldn't wait till I got home if I was you. Reach out to the Lord right now, right this moment, and say something like this: Lord Jesus, I am a sinner. No excuses, no explanation, no rationalization. I'm a sinner. I'm goofed up. I'm messed up. I've blown it. Forgive me. Please forgive me. I receive your forgiveness. I receive your salvation. I accept it. Come into my life. I give you me. Pray a prayer like that, and that's salvation.
Amen.
In faith, if you mean it. You can just say the words, but if you mean it, Jesus will come into your heart. Pray with me.